Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Facebook live stream. I am Emmy Grimes. I'm an educator and advisor here at Senergy Medical Group. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've got the amazing Dr. Amy Marshall here joining us today. She is going to be discussing fear in the consciousness, importance of grounding and getting out in nature, and how we focus on our personal empowerment and intuitions. Just a reminder, we won't be giving any medical advice. Without further ado, please welcome Dr. Amy Marshall.
Good morning, good afternoon. Hello, everybody, wherever you are.
Thanks so much, Dr. Marshall. Yeah.
Hey. So everybody's everywhere.
I know, it's a crazy time. We're so excited about this topic. And I want to start off too by asking you one question to start this conversation. There's been a great deal of concern, fear, and anxiety related to the current situation in this world. And do you have any suggestions on how we can deal with this specifically for our audience?
Yeah, I like to set a stage for people to understand why emotions drain us of energy in the first place, because I think that's really important. And that brings awareness to us so that we have some control and we have some buy-in and we have some presence. So it's not just a fear that we can't figure out why we can't get out of it. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think setting the stage and giving a little bit of background may be helpful in this case. And then I'm going to pull into some of the things that we can do. So as a quick introduction, my bio is on the website, so I don't want to spend time doing that. But I do want people to know that I had my own healing crisis and my own journey, and it took me about 4 years to get back. And I had some of the things that we deal with in the clinic to get me back to par so I could go back and get my master's and then my doctorate. So I understand the struggle in healing journeys, and I understand that it is not quick. It's not a quick turnaround. So with this emotion piece, that became a part of my healing journey as well. And I needed to take some time to heal that. So in my own journey, I've developed, I think, a better way, a really more effective way to find, acknowledge, and release these fears. Right now is the big one. And then my goal is to teach others to do this work and to share. Because it's not that hard. I've taught doctors and nurses and anesthetists and physical therapists and moms and dads to how to do this work. It's not hard. So coming back to the original question, if we think about fear, fear is like a frequency. Fear is a frequency, and it resonates in traditional Chinese medicine with the kidney bladder circuit. The kidney bladder circuit goes all throughout our body. It's not just the kidneys, it's not just the bladder. Therefore, we can find fear that resonates throughout the body. And so when I'm working on people with sound and light and stones and biogeometry, etc., I will find this fear in different places. And honoring the body and where it wants to work, it will let me know where it wants to release the fear first. So let's take a quick step back from that and talk about frequency, because we deal in frequency medicine. And that's where everything is going anyway. So if I can do a quick example.
Yeah, let's do it.
Here's my diagram. It's simple, but it works. Okay, so there we go. So do you see this frequency? You see my little pink squiggle? Let's say that that's fear, okay? Let's say that's some ancestor fear that's been passed on to you through your DNA. And then let's say you've got some childhood fear as well, which is going to be the blue.
Hold it a little bit closer to the camera. There you go. That's perfect.
Okay. So we've got some ancestral fear, we've got some childhood fear, and then we've got some present day fear. Okay. This is all the things that we have in our system. Well, what that leads to is something called amplification at the bottom. Okay. And that amplification is charged. That amplification is energy. It is layers and layers of those frequencies of fear. So it's easy to be triggered when you have a fearful situation, when you have those layerings of frequency in your body or in your field. And by field, I mean the magnetic field around every living thing. So coming in with sound, with light, with intention, with stones, with biogeometry, and I won't go into all of those, but with this method, we can actually come in and create resonance. We can create something that is not difficult. So we're coming in here with like sonar, with light, with sound. This is a healing frequency. This is compatible with the body. It's not an energy drain. So we can find these stuck energies, if you will, and release them in the body. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's really, it's really interesting to kind of see it in that diagram too.
Mm-hmm. To give you a visual.
Yeah.
Because you can actually feel these energies out in the field. And it's
Absolutely.
your energy that you're supporting back in the past from those traumatic events. And that's how it's an energy drain.
Wow. I mean, it's good to kind of see that face to face. I want to move on and ask you, and this may coincide with this, but when you think about a traumatic event in your life, are you triggered with emotions like anger, sadness, fear? What does this mean? And how does it lower our electrical voltage, health?
Right. So if you take a memory, let's take a memory in your past, and attached to that memory, let's use fear because that's the topic of the day. So we have a memory, and then attached to that is fear. And the fear is an emotion with charge, with energy, and it creates static. It creates static in the system. It creates something that the body has to support with its own energy to maintain it. Okay. And so what that is an energy drain. It is an outpouring of energy. And when you have a lot of them, people who have a lot of emotional baggage or a lot of emotional static in their system, they're often physically not well because so much of their energy, their life force is going out there to maintain these energetic charges. So what we try to do is finding these stuck energies. We're basically decoupling the memory from the charge. And we can transmute, we can release, we can soul retrieval, we can, whatever word you want to use, neutralize the charge that's associated with the memory. And so the memory becomes just that. It becomes a story. When you think about that memory, you don't have heart palpitations. You don't go into fear because the charge is no longer there. It's just neutral. And so that memory, and you start working on all of these charges out in your field, and you come to a neutral space. You come to a place of tranquility and peace and power in the present moment. And when we are there, that is our most powerful place because it's now. It's in the present moment. And I think that's probably the more important piece, even though it is kind of fun to go work with somebody who's in Alabama or Australia and go, hey, what happened to you at 5 years old regarding your dad? Why are you so fearful? And they can tell me exactly what happened. That's pretty cool. But really, the end result is we are standing in a neutral space. And from that neutrality, we can now create what we want in the future. We can send out the energy of emotions, of joy, manifesting abundance. We can send those out without being as influenced and dragged back by the past.
That's pretty cool. And it's amazing that you have that talent to just pull it out of people. It's so cool. It makes me want to do it all over again. So can you give us some examples of what your work patient and with when you work with patients with ancestral trauma?
Mm-hmm. So this is something that I seem to be working a lot in these days. I think as I've gotten very comfortable and stepped outside the box, the normal box of sound healing, I've started to do a lot more ancestral work, and it's very powerful work. I'll give an example. We had some people who flew in from California, and I was working with this gentleman, and I could like literally hear his life force drop, but it was in his parents. It wasn't him. And tons of fear, tons of anxiety. And I said, oh my goodness, what happened to your mom? What happened to your dad? And he said, oh, they were in a concentration camp. They were at Dachau in the concentration camp. And that energy was still in his field. He was carrying a lot of their burden. And this ancestral work is very sacred to me. It is very powerful, and I do believe that ancestors show up when they're being worked on. They know, and they show up to help. And sometimes they're strong energies, and sometimes they're just very subtle and present. So the ancestral work is very, very powerful, and it seems to be extrapolating out, like not just 1 and 2 generations back. Now I'm going like 25, 30 generations back, and finding these distortions in the field and sending in that resonance. So it's just neutral. And so whatever's been passed on through the DNA, we know it's not junk DNA. That was bogus. There is no junk DNA. That's information. That's information that's been passed down. Well, they also hold their own resonance. And some of these are these fear resonances that have been passed on, which is, again, that layer that I was talking about before. So we can come in and start pulling out some of these foundational layers of childhood, these ancestral layers of fear. And it's easier for us not to resonate with fear. We begin to resonate with courage and empowerment in daily life. And people change. People change.
Yeah.
Their personalities will change over time if they continue with this work, because they make different decisions. They choose better friends. They choose better environments. They make amazing parents because they're present. So what a gift to give yourself and the world with this presence.
Absolutely. That's amazing, because it's about, being in tune with yourself. So I think this is an important piece to this. Can you work on specific things like organs with like Lyme disease, Epstein-Barr virus, cranial nerves, teeth? Can it all work specifically?
Right. So that's been an interesting evolution. I started working on organs at the beginning. Yesterday I was working on this gentleman in Alabama, and I was so amazed. He had open heart surgery, so he had a huge scar that we're going to have to deal with at some point in time, as soon as he can come in. But he's doing a telemedicine visit, right? And it's his first visit, and he has no idea what he's walking into. And his whole heart had such a huge burden of betrayal and fear. It was those two things. And he was sitting in his chair in Alabama, and I'm working on him, and in my room, and I come to his heart and I say, oh my goodness, this is really, really heavy. So I said, tune into your heart, and we're just going to start pulling off some layers of this heaviness. And it was like the heart chakra. And so we're pulling off these layers, and he's sitting there, and I've never worked with him before, right? And he goes, oh my gosh, my heart is lighter. I can feel this. This is lighter. I was just astounded. But then I realized later that he's in a healing environment all of his own. He's like in social work. And so he already has that intuitive ability to help people where it's needed. So it was really fun to see somebody for the first time just go, oh my gosh, I can feel that. I can feel that pull off. So that was like working on the heart. An example of Lyme, those are specific pathogens are related to fear as well. They're related to stuckness, and we'll hold on to those pathogens longer if they resonate with us. So like Candida resonates with depression, and strep and staph are sometimes about fear and not speaking your truth, etc. That'll be in my next book. But with Lyme, for example, one of my students, I was teaching her how to find where Lyme showed up in this patient's history, and sending in the frequency of Lyme with sound and light. And so she went home, and her son had Lyme pretty bad. And so she was working in the field. This was her very first time doing this. So she came in with the Lyme vial. Actually, it looks like, yeah, here's one of them. So it's just a small vial. So she was coming in and found exactly where he got that tick bite, and he started going downhill. And that very next day, after she worked and kind of created the resonance and the flow, and the resistance went away, his urine was totally different, and he had like a boost of energy the next day. And he's like, okay, when can we do this again? So bringing in different pathogens and frequencies and toxins is important. It's important because also the other patient I had yesterday, she has MS, and she was filled with grief and fear that she would not be able to be at her son's wedding, that she had also missed her son's graduation from high school and college, sorry. So she was really filled, with a lot of heaviness. So we really worked on her heart through this fear of not being able to make her son's wedding. And so we worked in her power chakra. It was feeling powerless, the fear of not having any power. So we worked on her empowerment yesterday. And by the end of the session, she was just crying and crying and crying. And by the end of the session, she had made a plan. She had already made a plan on how she was going to make her son's wedding, no matter what. So it opened up an entire door of opportunity for her. I was just stunned. Yeah, it was really fun.
That is so cool. And I can feel how dedicated you are, Amy. Thank you. It's such a refreshment. Can you tell us, I want to end with this last question, but I want to know, for our audience, how people can do this remotely from home and address these emotional things going on with them.
So that requires a beautiful discussion on the morphic field. It requires a subtle energy discussion, and subtle energies are everywhere. Subtle energies are a donation of energy to us. So the world is made up of energy. It's ether, right? It's in the ether. There's not a vacuum between me and California. It's a continuum of energy. So a great book on morphic field is Rupert Sheldrake's Morphic Resonance. And the interesting thing is, if you have intention to be with me in my room energetically and to release and be worked on, you will be there, and I will be able to find what needs to be released. And most energy workers will work, they will work remotely all the time. So I have patients all over the world that I have the opportunity to work with. And it's just been overwhelming, really, to see what's come up and what can be released. And I have the funniest things that happen. Actually, had one yesterday. No, it's last week. I'm sorry. This woman came in, and I kept going right back to 22. Like, I kept finding, okay, what is going on at 22? She's like, I don't know. And I said, okay. So I just kept working. I was like, no, really, what happened at 22? Nothing. And then, like 45 minutes later, she goes, oh, I almost died. And I was like, oh, that's what happened at 22. And she said, yes, because you could feel that resonance just drop. Like her life force just dropped. She had spun out in a car and went underneath an 18-wheeler, and basically the top of the car was taken off, and she just basically ducked and yeah, basically. But things like that happen. It's like we're so unaware of the fear that we're still holding on to, period. We're unaware that when we were in kindergarten and that bully was there, we're still holding on to it. It's not in our conscious mind, we don't remember it, but it's there, and it's energy, and it's causing a drain. So I think, working remotely or working in person, part of this is awareness. Right. It's becoming aware. And when we can become aware, we can actually step away from it and look at it objectively and go, oh, there's my fear again. Let me just hug it. Let me just hug it. There's my fear again. So you can kind of detach from it a little bit when you're in an empowered, peaceful place. So it's really fun to see people evolve. The ones that I've worked with, over time, they feel this now. They know exactly where I'm going. You're in my amygdala, aren't you? And I was like, yeah. You're in my midbrain, aren't you? Yeah. Are you in my frontal lobe? Yeah, I am. So I work a lot in the head when it comes to that anxiety, fear, because that's that mental programming. That's the mental programming. So coming in and working on the head is gentle work, but it's very powerful because you're dealing with things like insomnia and PTSD and this anxiety and, of course, the fear right now. So working in that head to basically neutralize the past and then create what you want in the future has been a profound piece of this fear puzzle that we all have. And so it's basically allowing people to step down. You're stepping off of the platform of fear as you neutralize it in different places of your body. So what I wanted to do for people who have listened and want to try this and they never have, I'm going to record a session today after this, And then I'm going to have it on my website, and I think we're going to put a link here so that you can experience it, even if you're in Timbuktu. It doesn't matter. So that you can receive that healing in that modality if you never have before, and tune into letting go of fear, and also empowering yourself, to move forward with courage
and release, and just, yeah, I think that's a big part, because it's just a lot of us, we don't know what we need, to address. And so I think that's really impactful, to say that, because a lot of us are kind of just waddling or wading in the water, trucking along and making it each day. So it's a very important piece. I'm so grateful, Amy. Thank you again for discussing all this. Well, guys, thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Marshall, for going through all these details and helping our audience, just stay healthy. So we appreciate you.